These were a mystery to me when I received them. I received them in the collab that came out very recently with ADC Art Attack, and he sent me a box of 100 random things. And these are the only thing in that box that I didn't know what to do with. I mean, what are they, right? I tried like drawing with them or whatever. I mean, it's not what they're for. So I couldn't do anything with them in that video, but these really interested me and I didn't get to use them in that video, but I did buy an ink stone. You grind the ink stick here and it makes ink that pours down into that sort of channel there. Do you add water or, I mean, I could look up instructions or I could learn kinesthetically, which is what I like to do. I think that you grind and the pigment of the ink stick releases. Oh, there you go, it's sort of happening. Oh yeah, it's actually getting pretty saturated there. Look at that. So let's just start our dabbling, shall we? This is our first stroke with the ink stick ink. Okay, that's kind of cool. Wow, the pigment must be really fine for there to not be any grains or anything. It seems like a pretty cool quality ink. What I'm gonna do is a little experiment. This is my experiment. I'm just gonna pour a little bit of water in this little cup and set this one aside. In fact, I'll try and use this one first, because I don't know what color it is, but it looks white. In fact, I'm gonna try and grind this into the red that I've got here and see if that lightens the color maybe. That's what that's for. Add a little bit of water. I feel like I'm supposed to be doing this with like incense and like some soft, like plucking oriental instruments.
Sorry, we'll add it in post.
We'll add it in, okay, cool. And like some cool like visual effect. Oh, incense, can we add incense in post? Sweet. I'm far too impatient to pull this off. Look at that, it's really cool sort of watching it flow into the color I've already got there. Gives me a little bit of a palette in the sense that I can grab my darker pool of color here. It's still very close to the original color. I've got lighter pigment here. Really doesn't go down as all that different. I guess it fades slightly. I don't know, it's gonna be interesting to see how this works and what it's effective for. Like, was this a type of ink that was really for calligraphy, or can it be used for art? We're gonna find that out in this video. And one of the things we're gonna find out is if these are so dense that they don't dissolve, or if they are sort of water soluble. So I'm just gonna sit that ink stick right there in that bit of water, and we'll check in a couple of hours, see if it dissolves at all. In the meantime, it's time to use our three main colors that we have, red, blue, and like a golden orange. And I'm gonna see how much of a reservoir I can build up, see if I can get any decent amount on my little palette here. So, I know I joke a lot about being a kinesthetic learner, but honestly, I really do enjoy feeling how something works and trying to figure it out. I might be wrong, but there's something about the process of exploring something completely fresh to it, completely blind to how it's meant to work or be used, and just finding out naturally what it feels like. And these were really interesting because I've found a few things pretty quickly. First and foremost, they're a lot of work. You gotta sort of put your arm into it, and sometimes you gotta stand to get good leverage to give your arm and your muscles a break and enable you to put your shoulder and back into it. You're putting a lot of pressure on these stones to grind them against each other rapidly and repeatedly to force some of that pigment to release and mix into the water, constantly mixing it as you go. But beside it being a lot of work, it's kind of cool. Like, it feels like, I don't know, a different form of creative to be making the thing that you're working with. Now, I'm pretty sure that wherever these originated as a medium, it wasn't because it felt pretty cool to work with. It was because they discovered this was one of the best ways to make ink that probably lasted long or had better pigment or something like that. The results themselves were pretty interesting, and we'll play with those in a moment. I have no idea how saturated they are, how well they mix, or what they're going to be good for, but I seem to have some pretty rich pigmented colors. Takes a lot to get a little, but at the same time, I don't seem to be using much of these sticks to get the amount that I have. So now let's learn some ink stick facts. Ink sticks or ink cakes are a type of solid ink used traditionally in several East Asian cultures for calligraphy and brush painting. Along with the inkstone, ink brush, and paper, the ink stick is considered one of 4 treasures of the study of classical Chinese literary culture. So this seems to go way back, and historically, just from what I can glance, their use can be dated back to the 12th century BC. BC! Now, from what I can see, the earliest forms of the ink sticks used a graphite composite, and then eventually it evolved into more of the soot and chard inks, with quote-unquote modern ink sticks being of Chinese soot and animal glue found in archaeological excavations of tombs dated to the end of the Warring States period around 256 BC. Wow, that's old. The best ink sticks make very little noise when grinding due to the fine soot used, which makes the grinding action very smooth, whereas a very loud or scratchy grinding noise indicates an ink of poor quality with a grainy soot. Likewise, a quality ink stick should not damage or scratch the inkstone. So we have ground our ink sticks. We have one of each of the core colors here. Oh, we have primary colors. In theory, we should be able to mix secondaries. Let's see how rich our ink stick color gets. Mix a bit of green. So you can sort of see the pigment. If I push the water up there, you can sort of see how it starts to fade as it drops down, which I find is a good indicator to see how pigmented a material is. Mix in a little bit of yellow. There we go, we got a, ooh, oof, that's an unpleasant green. No, I'm not gonna, I would not like that color. Thank you very much. All right, next, bit of purple. Mixing the red and the blue. That's all right, that one there. And last but not least, yellow and red. Get a nice clean orange, and it's still mostly red. So I'm all out of yellow ink. I'm gonna grind some more. So I've got a lovely mix of colors here. And by lovely mix of colors, I mean fairly subpar colors, except for the red and blue, which are nice. Purple's all right. And then it goes rapidly downhill, but this is what I've got to work with. I'm gonna try 2 things. I'm gonna try calligraphy. I'm gonna try art, but I'm also gonna try it in the style of thousands of years ago. Like Oriental art. I'll like bring up some cool references and see if I can replicate that. Let's go. Now, I obviously don't have a black ink stick, so I tried to mix something as dark as possible, and with a mix of my 3 colors, I could mix, I would hope, a brown. Red and blue, when you mix them together and make it purple, always end up a bit darker, so by neutralizing it with a bit of yellow, I did end up with a brown, not super dark, but good enough to put to the test with a little bit of, I'm going to say Chinese calligraphy. I basically just copied the symbols at the back of one of the ink sticks. Please let me know in the comments what languages these things are, because I know the packet is different to the actual ink sticks. Thought that turned out pretty well, and I thought, you know what, let's take it a step further. Let's do our little dragon buddy. So using mainly the red ink and a mix of bit of yellow as well, and using the dragon on the back of an ink stick as inspiration, I created what I thought was a pretty cool looking Chinese dragon. just putting things to the test for the first time. There's quite a bit of saturation in there, especially in the red, and especially when I put it down heavier, of course. Oh, by the way, this has been soaking for some time now. Let's check it out. Whoa! Whoa! Oh my god, it's completely swollen. That's so weird. Here, squeeze it. How weird is that? Oh. It's so goopy. Oh my god. Okay. There you go. Let's peel some of that off. Oh my god, that's sort of gross. In fact, I'm doing this for science, of course. If I scrape this back, you can sort of see, okay, it's almost like a hard clay underneath. And the deeper in I try and scrape, the firmer it gets until it's almost a stone-like texture. All right, I'm going to put my ink skills to the test now. I'm going to try and create a beautiful but aesthetically appropriate, I'm going to say landscape, given that I mainly have mixes of like warms and greens. We'll see what we end up with. So in my approach to this piece, I didn't want to overwhelm it. I find that it's pretty tricky to keep the water-based mediums in control unless you're layering a lot, but because the pigment isn't as strong as most watercolors I've used, I feel like it's either I go in hard and probably risk ruining it due to using too much water and too many layers just to try and get the pigment to do what modern watercolors or gouaches do, or I go a little bit simpler and go back in time a little bit. And that's what I tried to do, keep things looking really sort of natural and a little more impressionistic than literal, and I really like the way this started to shape up. And to be honest, I really got into the flow of using the medium. It was really satisfying to use, and feeling like I was a part of making the colors I was putting down was part of its own satisfying process. Here it is, my oriental landscape. The red sun amongst the sort of less intense colors around it, I think looks really cool. That flow, the airflow with the leaves blowing in the wind, but feeling of nature because it looks like watercolors. But I don't know, this was a really fun experiment. I've never heard of ink sticks before. I learned how to use them, mainly without help. Thank you very much. And ended up with something I'm actually really proud of. Like, I'd hang that on the wall. I think that looks really cool. And it was with a medium thousands of years old. I find that fascinating, and I liked this video. I'm hoping you liked this video too, and if you did, maybe you should click the like button. Heard of that thing. I've heard good things about the like button. I hear it brings good things from the algorithm gods. And if we want to appease the algorithm gods, which, let's face it, we all want to appease the algorithm gods, maybe you should click subscribe. And the notification bell. Oh man, that'd make the algorithm gods so happy. And me. I already am happy. I'm happy with this result. I'm happy with this video. This was a good time. If you want more good times, there are more videos over there you're bound to enjoy. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. And until next time, I'll see you later.